not focus isn't because you lack discipline.
Right. Or because you need to download like yet another time management app.
Exactly. What if the actual reason your brain is buzzing with uh, that low-grade constant anxiety is because you are literally insulated from the physical world by a half inch of rubber?
It's a pretty wild thought,
It
honestly.
really is. So today we're exploring this radically simple and frankly profoundly uncomfortable solution to modern burnout. Our mission for this deep dive is to look closely at a document called The Barefoot Earth Walk, a guide to conscious grounding.
Yeah, and specifically, we're looking at an exercise-themed reconnect before you rebuild,
Right.
which, I mean, that title alone carries a heavy implication. It suggests that right now, the vast majority of us are trying to rebuild our energy or our focus or maybe even our entire careers while running on a battery that isn't actually plugged into any kind of foundational power source.
Yeah, like we're just running on fumes.
Exactly. We're basically attempting to construct these massive skyscrapers on top of a swamp of mental fatigue.
Let's unpack this.
Mm,
Because for anyone listening to us right now,
yeah.
someone who is constantly prepping for the next meeting, constantly absorbing information, just constantly going, this guide is asking you to hit a hard physical reset button.
It's not a subtle shift, yeah.
No, not at all. But before we get to the how, I feel like we have to look at the why. Because the text opens with a pretty brutal diagnosis of the modern condition, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely brutal. The guide argues that our baseline state right now is one of being just mentally overloaded, emotionally disconnected, and relentlessly stimulated.
Yeah, and fundamentally detached from nature.
Right. It says we basically hover about 2 feet above the actual ground, entirely trapped inside our own heads. So the solution it presents is a deliberate 30 to 40-minute exercise.
And we should clarify, the goal here is not fitness.
No, not at all. It isn't about getting your heart rate up or burning calories. The sole objective is restoring direct, unmediated contact with the earth.
And it means that, literally. I mean, the prerequisite for this entire protocol is that you have to take off your shoes.
Which is a huge hurdle for some
Well,
people.
for sure. But it brings us to the core thesis of the entire document. There's this quote that really anchors the practice. It says, you cannot create inner stability while remaining disconnected from the ground beneath you.
Consider how countercultural that statement actually is. I mean, we have been trained to treat stability as a purely psychological achievement.
Right, like it's all in our heads.
Exactly. We think, well, if I just organize my digital calendar better, I'll feel stable. Or if I just meditate for 10 minutes or get to inbox zero.
Inbox zero, the ultimate myth.
Right. If I finish this one massive project, then I will finally feel grounded. But this text rejects that premise entirely. It argues that stability is inherently physical.
Right, you simply cannot maintain a grounded, quiet mind inside a body that is completely insulated from the tactile physical world.
Yeah, it's impossible.
And the logistics the guide lays out for achieving this connection are, honestly, incredibly strict.
Very strict. They don't mess around.
No, they don't. You are instructed to find a safe, natural surface.
Mm.
So that could be grass, soft soil, sand, maybe a clear forest path.
And obviously, you avoid sharp stones, heavily polluted areas, or like concrete that's just baking in the sun.
Right, safety first. You bring water. You bring a towel to wipe your feet afterward. You bring a journal. And then comes the absolute non-negotiable rule.
No phones.
No phones, none. You don't put it on airplane mode in your pocket.
Yeah.
You don't put it on silent. You literally leave it behind.
And honestly, for a significant portion of the population, leaving the device behind is actually the most terrifying instruction in the manual.
Oh, yeah. Which makes perfect sense when you think about the mechanics of how we live.
Yeah.
I was reading this section, and I kept visualizing my smartphone when it's frantically searching for a Wi-Fi signal in a dead zone.
Oh, I know that exact feeling.
Right. The battery is draining rapidly. The phone literally physically heats up in your hand, and that little wheel is just spinning and spinning, searching for a connection that isn't there.
That is the exact state of the modern knowledge worker's mind.
Exactly. And the thing about a phone is, you literally cannot install a crucial operating system update while it is running a dozen apps and desperately searching for a signal. You have to plug it into a power source, set it down, and leave it alone to reset.
That's a great way to put it. That physical disconnection from the digital signal is the only way to plug back into the biological one.
Yeah,
But the text acknowledges that this initial transition is going to cause immense friction. I mean, the very first phase of the walk, before you even take a single step, is dedicated entirely to the act of removing your footwear.
I have to be honest here. When I read the part about scheduling time to go outside and take my shoes off in the dirt, my first thought was, this sounds incredibly pretentious.
Yeah, I get that.
Like in a world where most of us barely have time to eat lunch away from our desks, isn't this just a luxury practice for people with too much free time? Taking off your shoes in the mud just feels so, I don't know, exposed.
What's fascinating here is how the guide anticipates that exact skepticism and resistance. It actually provides a specific script for the facilitators who lead these walks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As participants remove their shoes, the facilitator is instructed to say, as your feet touch the earth, notice your immediate reaction. Some may feel discomfort, some may feel freedom, some may feel resistance. Observe without judgment.
Wow. So the resistance isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's just the first data point.
Exactly. The guide explicitly wants you to encounter that psychological vulnerability. I mean, we use shoes as armor. Thick rubber soles, pristine sneakers. That's how we dictate terms to our environment.
Right, we decide we won't feel the cold, we won't feel the dampness, we won't feel the uneven terrain.
Yeah. Removing that armor forces an immediate shift from a state of control to a state of connection. You are no longer dominating the environment. You are simply receiving it.
And the goal of this first phase isn't to feel instant magical bliss.
No, not at all. The goal is simply to shift your attention from the noise in your head to the sensory reality of your feet.
Okay, so once that initial shock of vulnerability is registered, you don't just start hiking. The text introduces a massive shift in how we handle our own gravity.
Yeah, before you take a single step, you have to stand completely still for 3 minutes.
And 3 minutes of absolute stillness feels like an eternity when your baseline is constant motion.
It really does. It's agonizing at first.
Yeah, and the postural mechanics they demand are highly specific. You stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Your eyes are either softly lowered or completely closed. Your knees have to be slightly bent and relaxed.
And your arms just hang loose at your sides. It's purposefully deconstructing that rigid, locked knee, braced posture we instinctively adopt when we are stressed or rushing or, defensive, right?
And as you stand there, the instruction is to bring your awareness to your weight distribution. The text offers this incredibly powerful cue. It says, feel the earth holding your weight without asking anything from you.
That is, just think about the underlying physics of our daily lives. We spend all day holding ourselves up. We are holding up our professional personas, our familial responsibilities, our financial anxieties.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. The modern adult is in a constant state of muscular and psychological tension, just bracing against the demands of the world. To stand there and consciously realize that the ground beneath you is supporting your entire mass, completely unconditionally, it requires a massive release of chronic, unrecognized tension.
Basically giving yourself explicit permission to just be physically heavy. You don't have to carry yourself for those 3 minutes.
Exactly. And only after you establish that baseline of physical yielding does the actual movement begin. But it is not walking as we know it.
Oh, not even close. The mandatory pace is half your normal walking speed, which, if you actually try to walk at 50% of your normal speed, it feels completely absurd.
It's painstakingly, frustratingly slow.
The frustration is the point, though. Because normal walking, biomechanically speaking, is essentially a controlled forward fall.
Right.
We use our own momentum to carry us through the motion so we don't have to balance on one foot for very long.
Right. We basically cheat gravity with speed.
Yeah. But the guide forces you to strip away that momentum. You have to break down the anatomy of a single stride. So the heel must touch the earth first. Then you slowly roll onto the middle of the foot. Then the toes make contact.
You're forced to feel the full, uninterrupted weight transfer across every square inch of your soul. And of course, there is a strict rule against any talking.
No talking at all.
Right. This is the mechanism where physical deceleration acts as a lever to force mental deceleration.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you've ever watched a frantic action movie, and the director suddenly drops the footage into extreme Matrix-style slow motion, your perception changes entirely. You are no longer just seeing the chaotic blur of a fight scene. Suddenly, you see the individual dust particles floating in the air. You see the sweat flying off the hero's face. You see the subtle ripple of fabric on a jacket.
Everything becomes hyper-detailed.
Yes, and that time dilation is exactly what this half-speed walking does to your sensory input. When you eliminate momentum, you suddenly have the bandwidth to notice tiny texture variations. You notice that the soil under your left foot is slightly cooler, than the patch of grass under your right.
You feel the micro adjustments your hips are making just to keep you upright.
Exactly.
You are flooding your brain's processing center with complex, immediate physical data. I mean, normally all of your mental RAM is allocated to the abstract thoughts in your head, what you're doing tomorrow, what you should have said in that meeting yesterday.
Right, the endless loops.
Yeah. But taking a single, agonizingly slow step barefoot on uneven ground requires immense biomechanical calculation. By forcing this hyper-focus on the physical act of walking, you are literally starving your anxious, looping thoughts of the processing power they need to survive.
Wow, so the mental speed has no choice but to decelerate to match the physical speed.
It's a biological override, yeah.
During this incredibly slow movement, the guide suggests facilitators occasionally offer reflection prompts. And I want to pause and pose one of these directly to you, the listener, right now. The prompt is simply, can you walk without mentally escaping?
Oh man, that might be the most difficult challenge in the entire text.
Really think about it. Think about what we do when we supposedly go for a relaxing walk in the woods. We are almost always listening to an audiobook or a podcast, or we're actively daydreaming about a vacation or planning our grocery list.
Yeah, we use the walk as a background activity while our minds escape to a different time or place.
Exactly. This practice dares you to stay entirely locked into the physical present reality of a 20-minute stroll.
And when you finally stop escaping, something very profound happens. The transition from speed to presence forces a lot of buried material to the surface, which really brings us to the pivot point of the practice.
Yeah, the body's moving slowly, the mind's RPMs have finally dropped, and now the focus shifts outward to the environment before turning very sharply inward.
The text calls this phase sensory expansion. You actually stop walking entirely.
Right, you just pause.
Yeah, you pause, and the objective is to expand your awareness beyond your own thoughts. You are asked to actively notice the sound of wind moving through leaves, the warmth of the sunlight on your skin, the specific smells of the soil or the vegetation.
And the mechanism here is really about decentering the ego, isn't it?
It is. It's a tactile reminder that you are a biological organism embedded in a vast living ecosystem, not just an isolated brain floating in a void of stress.
I love that. And once you anchor yourself in that broader environment, the protocol introduces a specific physical posture for emotional reflection.
Yeah, so you're instructed to stand still, place one hand over your heart, and extend the other hand downward, pointing toward the earth.
It's such a deliberate stance.
It is. The posture bridges the internal rhythm of your own biology, like your heartbeat, with the external stabilizing force of gravity.
And as you hold that posture, the text provides this incredible quote. It says, grounding is not becoming emotionless. It is becoming stable enough to feel fully.
That line completely reframes how we think about staying busy.
It really does.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it exposes the architecture of our modern work ethic. We constantly reward busyness. We treat a packed schedule as a badge of honor.
Oh, 100%. But really, we use that speed as an avoidance tactic. I mean, if I am always moving, always consuming information, always optimizing my routine, I never actually have to sit with the underlying anxiety or the grief or the sheer exhaustion that I'm carrying.
You can outrun it.
Yeah, I can literally outrun my own nervous system. But the second you stop, the second you strip away the shoes and the phone and the momentum, all those suppressed emotions are just going to crash into you.
And they surface in the silence, which is exactly why the guide is so adamant about how this phase is handled. There are very strict do not guidelines provided for anyone facilitating this walk.
Right.
The manual commands do not over-spiritualize the experience, do not force emotional interpretation, do not use loud or manipulative music.
It's so interesting that a practice about walking barefoot in nature is so hostile to over-spiritualizing the moment.
Yeah.
It almost feels like the opposite of what you'd expect from a grounding retreat.
Yeah, it does, but the reasoning is brilliantly pragmatic. The moment a facilitator starts telling you what you should be feeling, telling you that you're absorbing the Earth's vibrational energy, or that you need to weep to release your ancestral trauma, they have instantly put you back into your head.
I see. You immediately start intellectualizing the experience. You think, am I doing this right? Am I feeling the correct spiritual connection?
Exactly. The guide desperately wants to keep you in your physical body. The instruction is to let the natural emotional experiences happen on their own terms, without a narrative.
So if you just feel the breeze, that is a success.
Yes. And if you suddenly feel a wave of profound sadness because you realize you've been running on fumes for 3 years, you allow it. The stability of the ground provides a literal, physical container that is secure enough for you to actually process that feeling instead of running away from it. Guide aims specifically at people carrying a severe cognitive or emotional load. It's called the burden release walk.
I found this part fascinating because it ties the psychological act of letting go to a physiological trigger.
Yeah, in this variation, as you take those incredibly slow, deliberate steps, you synchronize the biomechanics of your foot with the mechanics of your respiration. So with every step you take, you mentally assign a specific stressor, maybe pressure at work, a fear of failure, a feeling of inadequacy.
And as your foot rolls from heel to toe, you align it with a long, forceful exhale. You use the physical action to mentally discharge the heaviness.
Right, and scientifically, the mechanism of a long exhale physically forces the parasympathetic nervous system to engage. It manually lowers your heart rate.
So you are pairing the intention of emotional release with the biological reality of calming down. That's incredible.
It is.
So what does this all mean? We have walked through the entirety of this protocol. Taking off the shoes, standing in silence, walking at half speed, expanding sensory awareness, and journaling. Why should you, the listener, actually carve out 40 minutes of your busy life to go try this?
Well, the guide makes a compelling, evidence-based case at the end. This isn't prescribed just to give you a pleasant afternoon.
Right.
The specific combination of sensory immersion, physical deceleration, and digital disconnection provides profound nervous system regulation. It lowers cortisol, reduces generalized anxiety, and forces actual embodied mindfulness. It is a mechanical intervention for a nervous system that has been entirely hijacked by modern demands.
This raises an important question. How often do we try to solve the exhaustion of modern life by leaning into the exact tools that caused it?
Oh, all the time.
We feel burned out from staring at screens all day, so we search for a better relaxation routine on a screen. We feel overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of our jobs, so we try to implement a highly complex, multi-tiered productivity system to manage that overwhelm.
Exactly. What the Barefoot Earth Walk suggests is that the true antidote to complexity is not more complexity. The antidote is radical physical simplicity.
It is the ultimate rejection of the life hack. Inner stability doesn't require a monthly subscription.
Yeah.
It doesn't require a wearable device that tracks your stress metrics. It doesn't even require you to be particularly good at meditation.
No, it really doesn't.
It simply requires you to be willing to feel a little bit uncomfortable, to shed the armor of your shoes, and to pay absolute undivided attention to the very ground that has been holding you up this entire time. We've explored the journey from the buzzing, disconnected overload of our daily routines through the deep psychological resistance of unplugging and into the stabilizing power of moving slowly across the earth. It is a potent reminder that sometimes slowing down the physical body is the only possible way to let the mind catch up.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you transition back into the noise of your day. The next time you find yourself entirely overwhelmed by a complex problem at work, or feeling paralyzed by a tangled